Y'all, Sage is going to be a very interesting card in Marvel Snap. And the reason I say interesting is because if you ask the majority of people if Sage is going to be relatively decent, most people will say, because they look at the whole month. And if you look at the whole month, you're trying to figure out your resources of, is Sage worth actually using any resources on? Because there are a lot of good cards that people are wanting to target. And myself included. Look, I put Sage towards the bottom of the list originally. But the more I sat and theory crafted with Sage, the more I came to realize that there is potentially something really big here. So welcome. Welcome in, folks. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. And I want to talk to you about Sage because honestly, the more I sit and theory craft with her, the more I get excited about what her pop-off potential could be. So let's talk about it, all right? Sage is now a 3-0. She was a 4-1 in the data mines, and then she ends up releasing at 3-0 with the on-reveal effect of +2 power for each different power among all other cards here. So a couple things with this effect, right? Number one, it's an on-reveal. That means we do have the potential for multiple instances of this happening. It is a card that can be replicated by Absorbing Man. It's a card that can pop off a second time via mechanics of whether it be, Grandmaster or Odin or etc. There are lots of ways we can have, or Wong, we can have this scale in multiple pop-offs. And then simultaneously, it makes you go, wait a minute, I know a card like this. Wolfsbane is a 3-1 that gives you the +2s for each other card at this location, no matter what the cost is of that card. So in certain cards, sure, that makes total sense. Like if you're playing it in a Brood lane, then your benefit goes into Wolfsbane. But if you're playing it into most other lanes, I think Sage actually ends up with the much higher ceiling because you're looking to play Sage as a end of the game pop-off card. This is not really a turn 3 play by any stretch of the imagination. The only time I see it being done so is if you're trying to immediately contest one of the most annoying cards in Marvel Snap right now, White Widow, because that lane's most likely not full, and you're most likely not having a -4 other card in the same lane also. So I'm kind of about that life, and it's a good way to help counteract that because automatically that's a 3-4, so you're undoing that, plus then you can fill the lane. And even 3-4 is just good value. 3-5, great, of course. That's the new sexy version, if you will, of 3-cost cards. But you want that 3-6 or higher. And anything that gets 3-6 or higher with Sage should be considered a very good target. That means just have 3 cards in the lane between both lanes. And yes, you can manufacture that. You can help make that happen, of course, on your own side, but maybe you send something over to your friend, also known as your opponent. You send them another card, whether it be a rock or a hood or I don't know, it could be anything really, but I have a couple of ideas of how we could make that work. The other things I want to talk to with Sage specifically is when they went from 4-1 to 3-0, I think they're specifically saying, look, we need to give Silver Surfer another option as a turn 6 big play, because right now your big turn 6 plays are Gladiator and Gladiator and Gladiator coupled with Surfer. That's basically it. That's your 3-8, because you're putting Sebastian Shaw most likely down earlier for all of those other buffs, so you need another big card that can go with Silver Surfer to help bring it over the top. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that for her. But then as I thought even further about it, I'm like, wait, she's a 3-0, so she's going to get reduced by Ravonna. That led to some interesting discoveries and ideas. And then inversely, she's a 3-0, which means that she's also a 0-3 with Mr. Negative. So you can see where my brain starts going with this deck, and I think a lot of us are in very similar mindsets about how to use this card. The question is the ceiling going to be high enough for it to justify you using your resources? Let me show you what I've got cooked so far, and then we'll talk about it at the end. So we talked about Negative, right? I think Mr. Negative makes a lot of sense. She's a 3-0 turning into a 0-3. That's a no-brainer, gets pulled out by Jane Foster, and it couples incredibly well with this deck. Because think about the other lines that can happen here because of Ravonna that Black Panther can't take advantage of. you have the actual potential of playing down in this style of deck the Wong, Mystique, Sage, Arnim Zola line, all in 6 turns, yet alone on a Magic turn. So you could go down that Black Panther way, or you could just straight up stack it up with Sage, because Sage is going to pop off that on reveal multiple times, and I'm quite okay with that. You know, have her pull off, and even if I was debating also on the Null line, like, do I want Null in here? And I said, no, I want the Odin line for Arnim Zola to pop off as many times as possible, because you've got your Iron Man Mystique. This is a relatively classic Mr. Negative deck, but I think Sage actually ends up replacing what used to be Darkhawk way back in the day. In the original version of what was a top version of the Mr. Negative deck, I think Sage actually ends up being that new replacement for it officially. Havoc has kind of been in there for a little while, but now Sage is definitely going to take over that spot, because it's going to continue to add on all of these unique costs, because look at how they flip as a negative. Wong could be a 2. Iron Man could be a 5. Could be a 4. Iron Man could be a 5. Black Panther is going to be weird numbers potentially. Arnim Zola is going to be a 6. These are all unique costs automatically. So Sage is a perfectly organic fit into that. And I am thinking that that's probably going to end up being her highest ceiling home. But that's not to say that she won't have good value as a 3-0, right? Taking a look at what I'm simply dubbing SageBlayde. Look, kudos to SageBlayde for his absolutely unique take on Cannonball Professor X by taking advantage of Angela and Green Goblin and Wolfsbane and all of these cards that get reduced down by Ravonna. I like throwing in Sage into this mix in particular. I actually took out Rulk because I think Sage's potential for being a flexible play makes a lot of sense here. So you can plop it on down because you're going to have unique costs via the Angela, unique costs via the Nebula. There's a lot of cheap cards here, and you can expedite out that Professor X on 4 potentially, and you can play major defense with Cannonball on turn 6, where then you've got cards like a Havoc that's been reduced down, or a big Kitty Pryde to plop on down in coupling with that. I like this style of deck, and I think that Sage is an organic fit here because, once again, it's going to be very easy for this type of deck to have multiple unique costs that you can help manufacture because of cards like Angela, Nebula, Kitty Pryde, and yet alone the importance of Hope Summers with Havoc on turn 5 as another turn 5 option. Big fan of that, big fan of that. Here's the Surfer build I've built. It is a Ravonna Surfer build, and you've seen a pattern already between the first 3 decks. Ravonna Renslayer, Ravonna Renslayer, Ravonna Renslayer. Basically, if you have Ravonna Renslayer, I think that's a huge piece in helping to decide if you should get Sage at all. If you don't, I don't think it is as worthy as it could be. I keep saying costs, and thank you for the live chat here on Twitch for saying costs. Unique power. That's the word I'm looking for consistently. I'm stuck in the Ms. Marvel mindset. So I appreciate that, chat. Thank you. So let's talk about Silver Surfer here for Sage and what it's going to do, right? We've seen the success of the Toxic Surfer deck, most recently created and curated by Gregor. And I took that shell of the Magic line with Sarah and Odin, etc. for that Surfer build, and then reconfigured the negative package into the Ravonna package. So we have the Grandmaster double pop-off. We have the Ironheart organically already in here, which fits perfectly. Got the Wolfsbane in here and the Sage as 2 potential options to multiply on that Wong lane in particular. And then Odin can send everything to the freaking moon, because Sage Odin is a win condition in a lane all by itself, yet alone on top of Wong, or coupled with Silver Surfer and have that go off several times and then play Sage again. Or there's just so many different power climbing lanes that this deck now offers, and for cheap with Sarah and Ravonna Renslayer, yet alone, it doesn't have to be a turn 7 style deck. Magic is specifically going to want to be targeted here if you are utilizing the full package of Ravonna plus Sarah and magic. If you have that line in your hand, go for it. That's fine. But also be wary. You might not want to put your Sage in the Brood lane in particular. Obviously, you're going to have two power cards all in that lane. Ironheart could help undo that depending on the ordering in which you play your cards down. So Brood would preferably want to go down before the Ironheart, then before the Sage. So keep an eye out for that. But I think that this style of Silver Surfer is how Sage would be best utilized. She is essentially playing the role of Gladiator with less downside. We're just going to pretend Shadow King doesn't exist for a moment, okay? Sage Monkey Bounce. Now, Sage Hit Monkey, I think, is also going to be a very big deck to deal with because we're seeing Bounce start to make a comeback. We saw the success because of the re-rise of Angela. And I like Sage in this deck too because I don't feel as bad putting down the Hood now in a lane because I can help counteract it a little easier because it is a unique cost and I don't have to rely on sending it over necessarily. I can bounce it back up into my hand. I can get rid of it that way. Or if it has to lay on down there, chances are it's going to be a unique cost. And if it isn't a unique cost, that's because they're doing the same thing. So you're already ahead of lane space either way. I debated about going back and forth consistently with the Iron Man package versus a Mockingbird Mysterio package, and because it's a Hitmonkey deck, I am going to lean more into the package of Hitmonkey and Mysterio as a turn 5 option, so you can play Sage on turn 6 or vice versa. I think Sage going down on turn 5 is still an incredibly strong play, getting her a 3/8 because of all the unique cards that you have down there. You've replaced them as you need. That's going to be very, very good. So these powers that she offers of adding +2 power for each different power among all other cards here, the Mysterios are 0s. You're going to get a couple of 3s, but then Angela scales higher than that. Elsa might stay as a 3. Falcon you put into a different lane. Bishop's going to be a weird number. Even though it's a deck that says Bast makes everything 3 power, Sage is actually going to be able to dance around that relatively easily because of all the uniqueness that will scale from it. So I'm very happy with the idea of having Sage be a secondary option to couple with Hitmonkey and the unique power that he brings, rather than just rely on exclusively a 5-cost Iron Man. Because Mockingbird's going to get cheaper. You've got the Demon coming down. You've got the Mysterio Illusions coming down. I think that this is a potentially very strong home as well for Sage. Lastly, Sage is junk. You want to talk about unique costs? We can talk about unique costs. How's -3 sound? No? Okay, so let's send that over there. How about -4 or 0 even? Either one of those? Okay, we can send those over there too. Let's just send you an unnecessary amount of crap and then have it be easy to dance around afterwards. Look, this having that -10 from the Void, the -3 from the Hood or the Green Goblin, the 0 or -4 from the White Widow, you are curating Sage to be a single card win condition given these mechanics. And you can target how you want to do your final turn based on, obviously, Daredevil, and by keeping that incredibly focused and localized. If you have Daredevil, that's your turn 2 play over White Widow, in my opinion. You can still keep on going with that unique, different level of lane construction, because even Professor X locking down 1, stack it higher and higher and higher, and now send over something with the Hood, and then you've got a 6-power Annihilus, a -3 power Hood, even a 2-power Daredevil, just that alone, and you're stacking a 3/8 Sage. And that, because you know they're contesting the lane. That's a really strong card. And I think that that flexibility of sending over junk items and capitalizing on the fact that you did, not just for their negative power, but for the negative power, but the unique power specifically given Sage's package, I'm a fan of that. And I think that there is something there. But what does it all actually mean? Is Sage going to be worth your Spotlight keys, or more importantly, your collector's tokens? Honestly, If you don't have Ravona, it's a resounding no, because there's a lot of cards that will give you equivocal power or equivocal pieces, right? We talked about Hitmonkey. It's very similar to Hitmonkey in a way. We talked about Wolfsbane. It's very similar to Wolfsbane in a way. It does have the advantage of getting incredibly cheap because of a card like Ravona, and that synergy alone can make this a 2/14. That's exciting and intriguing. Look, if you're a negative player, you're going to love this card. If you're a surfer player, you're going to love this card. But I don't necessarily think this is worth 6,000 tokens because of it. No matter if you're Super Tech God and you're the biggest Ravona fan in the world, this is still not a card I would say it's worth all of your keys and all of your resources to get. I think that this is a great luxury, flexible piece. And I hope I am incredibly wrong, because the ceiling on this card is very high. Could go up to base, could go up to a 3 cost 14 power card. Because remember, it's for each different power among all other cards here. Hers does not count. So it's the other 7 positions in that. Up to 7 positions in that. I don't think it's worth going out of your way and bending over backwards for. But do not be surprised if you start seeing a lot of people playing Sage and a lot of large, tall Sages coming down on the battlefield on turn 5 or turn 6. I expect that day 1. Day 2, I expect everybody and their sister to be playing Leech. Day 14, I expect Sage to come back again with a little bit more competitiveness because the meta's calmed down a bit. I expect us to see a bunch of Leech who just got that 4/2 buff. I expect us to see a lot of synergy also, and I didn't utilize, for example, Ghost. I didn't really use too much with Luke Cage. I do expect to see some of that synergy become important with this card, but it still never resonates with me as a, look, you need to have this card. But you'll be happy you do, because it's a flexible option for decks that have incredibly high ceilings, but do require very good snap equity and understanding when to snap and when to retreat. For example, in a negative deck, you have to be confident in your negative deck ability to retreat to capitalize on the pop potential of a card like Sage. I think she's going to be a good card, and we're going to be testing her here on stream, probably for the next few days. But if you're going to be looking to use your spotlights and your keys, honestly, wait till the weekend. Just give it some time. Wait till the weekend. Let us all kind of really see if we need it. Definitely don't use your collector's tokens, though. I think the Sage is a good card. She is a fun card, but not necessarily a card you absolutely have to have 911, especially because Gladiator just got series dropped down into Series 4. So, with that said, I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for hanging out today here on the guest list. If you like this type of content, please, as always, like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Be good.